G'day folks, I've just fitted diff breathers to my Pajero and I think it's worked out pretty good, and so I'm going to show you in case you're interested. And yeah, I think I've done it a little bit differently to often done, but I kind of came across some information that I quite like, and more about that in a minute. So I'll just start by showing you what I bought, so the components you would need. This is 6mm vacuum hose. This is actually silicone hose. Now, I'm not saying it has to be silicone. I'm not saying that I even necessarily like this hose, but that's what's commonly available, and I think it will do the job fine. So that's 6mm is internal. Okay, and I have used 3 6mm T-pieces. I've got the light on the turned on the phone because as I get under the car we'll need it. So I used 3 of those. Now if you could find one that was at 6, 6 and 4 on the T-piece, that would make for a slightly neater installation. I couldn't find one in the couple of shops that I went to. They probably exist, but I don't know. You can buy a kit with a heap of different stuff in it, but it's like $300. I mean, this stuff's just nylon. I was just a little bit taken aback by that. I would love to have bought one, maybe I will one day, but I just, yeah. Now I found these things, and these things are important. This is a 4 to 6. So there's 6, there's 4. You can see there's still 2 there. They come 2 in a pack. I haven't used those, but I did use those, so I used 2 of them. So I used 3 of them. There's 1 in each of those packs. 3 in total. 2 of those, and straight 6mm. There were 2 in this pack. I've used 1, so you need 1 of those. That's 6 to 6. And you also need to do it the way I've done it, a 6mm barb. Now you can use a tire valve stem. It has been done. But I ended up using one of these. I had these lying around and I think this is pretty cool, so I would suggest you do this. I also used one of these. Not critical, I could have used a cable tie if I was, but it just kind of makes it a little bit nicer, a little bit safer. You may not really need it, but it's just extra peace of mind. Now you will need to size this to fit over the outside of your hose when it's fully opened up. So fully opened up, it just fits over, and that worked. Now I'm just going to show you this because this is a piece that I've removed. The transfer case and gearbox breathers come together into this one point. Now this looks kind of fancy, but all it is just holding the hoses. That's it. And blocking the ends, I guess. When I say blocking the ends, as in, I guess, stopping too much air movement around the ends, I guess. They're just kind of like poking them into a little box of steel, which I guess, yeah, theoretically reduces the amount of dust or whatever that the ends will be exposed to. Now you can see, I've just taped it on because I don't want to lose this stuff, but I'll just show you how it sits. Okay, so here's the car. Now it sits on top of the gearbox in that orientation. Now that's important later. I'll even take this with me to show you what that means. Okay, so it's time to delve under the car, and I'll show you some things. Alrighty. So in essence, I have teed them all into the one line and fed them towards the front, so I'll explain it that way at this point in time. Now I can just squeeze under here. Okay, so looking from the back of the car, this is generally obvious, and this is the breather for the rear diff. Now this is still the standard original hose. That's approximately 4mm internal. Okay. Now that normally goes up here and goes into this plastic barb, and then just goes into this underbody cross member, you might say. So what I did is I just disconnected it from that barb. I used my 4 to 6 barb nylon converter, and I plugged the end of my 6mm silicone hose into that, and I just cable tied it there. That seems a neat location. Okay. Alright, now I decided that I kind of liked where this is the I think this is actually, yeah, I guess a lot of you won't have that. This is for the rear air conditioning, I think. I decided I wanted to follow that, but look, you'll find stuff to cable tie it to. So that's that thing that we saw earlier. That's where my 6mm starts. Comes forward past the tail shaft. Keep it out of the way of the tail shaft and all of that. Okay. Still following through here. Oh, I forgot to clip that one. Okay. Still following through here. We just got to keep going because I'll show you here. This is the transfer case, okay, so that's the transfer case here. And this, strangely, the breather actually comes out of this plastic thing, or at least that's as far as I could determine. And now I could have tapped into here, but this actually takes it all the way forward on top of towards the front of the gearbox, and it was actually easy for me to tap into it there. So I decided to just leave this in place. So as you can see, I just continued on up past the fuel tank. Okay, now this is where a lot of action happened. Okay, this is the gearbox. Okay, and this location up here, you can see this hose here. Okay, that's actually now the gearbox breather. So this little bracket I showed you earlier, that sits up there like that, okay? And then there's a little 10mm. Oh shit, yeah, sorry, I wasn't showing you that, was I? So this sits up there like that on top of the gearbox, so it's further up in there. The bolt hole is just there, and the bracket will sit up there. Sorry, I keep not showing you very well. And it's a little bit easier for me to get up there because I have a 10mm subframe drop, although I do have slightly larger than average hands. So, you know, if you persevere, I think you'll be okay. In worst case scenario, it's actually not hard to drop this gearbox cross member. It's only 4 bolts. Make sure you got a jack under there, drop that down a bit, and that'll help you out if you get stuck. Okay, so they actually come out of here pretty easily. So basically, you undo this bracket and it will just come off mostly, and you pull the hose out, and then you have 2 hoses. Now, thankfully, the transfer case is quite long. This is it here. This is the end of the transfer case one. Oh, I'm not showing you again. So the transfer case, you can easily just pull that down, comes all the way down to here. Now once again, that's a 4mm. So this is where I got to step to a piece of 6mm and then into a T-piece. So there's the T-piece here. So this is where if you had a 6 and a 4, you could eliminate this one and just have the 1, and it would be slightly neater. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is going to work. Okay, and this is where I had the straight 6 to 6 because I wanted to make that longer so that I could bring it down, and so you can see it there. It's coming down to here, and then it joins another T-piece. Okay, and then the two T-pieces. So this is all in line from the, so this is from the rear diff coming forward. Then we just go, that's to the transfer case. This is to the gearbox. Sorry, I got that around the wrong way. That one's to the gearbox. That was to the transfer case. I probably should have put them the other way so that you could mentally stay more on track with it, but it's fine. And then I've gone up here, up the firewall and into the engine bay, and I kept it behind the heat shield for the exhaust. I actually poked the hose. So you've cut the hose by now, and I poked what's remaining down through the engine bay and worked with it. Now, you might say, well, is there enough flow, you know, to be able to just pump them all into one? Well, good question. I can't give you... I mean, basically that was... The gearbox already was a 6mm, so really I have reduced the amount of volume available. Yeah, it could be argued that it should have switched to 8mm from this point onwards, but I would say because it's a squared factor, you can a 6mm is probably at least twice as much as a 4mm. In fact, yeah, we could do a quick calculation there. So plumbing 3-4mm into one 6mm is probably not an issue, but it could be argued that I'm a bit undersized from here on in. The question is, how much air are these things actually going to suck in, and are they going to suck it in at the same time? So there's another question. It may not be an issue at all. So the idea, the saying is that you poke your front diff into the water, and then it will rapidly cool and suck air in, and you want that to be nice fresh air, not water. Now, you can't put your front diff and your rear diff in at the same time unless you're going fast. And I mean, maybe ultimately they'll end up sucking it at pretty much the same time. But you've also got a lot of volume, although you don't want to create a vacuum. Yeah, so I guess, to be honest, here I am. I've just created a bit of doubt of what I've created. That's not much good. I forgot to clip that one. So anyway, at this point, you might want to switch to 8mm or even 10mm. Unfortunately, I was running off information, and you know, I've just done it, and this is where I'm at. So anyway, it will all be pretty much the same deal. You just need some bigger hose, and you need to be able to convert from 6 to 8 or 10, or just start the whole thing with 8 or 10, which might be what I would do next time. But anyway, this is all seat of the pants. So you've seen that. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. A lot of people put these kind of sintered little filter things on their firewall. Well, if you're going to go to the effort of putting breathers in, you really want a higher point than here. I mean, yes, that's better, but you know, why not do a proper job of it? I mean, I would say that the kind of person that puts their breathers to here is the kind of person that has a snorkel and should have a sealed snorkel. And if you've got a sealed snorkel, that's actually where you should take your breathers. So, actually I've jumped ahead slightly because so I've poked it up here. This is it here, okay? So it's come up there, under there. It's out of the way. It's not near the steering shaft. It's nice away from the exhaust. Although silicon hose is probably quite heat tolerant. Now I found that the 6mm. Now here is the front diff breather. So we're now up to our fourth thing, and I found that it had this little rubber cap on it. I took the rubber cap off, and I found that the 6mm actually fitted over it pretty nicely. This is where I put my little clip, just for extra peace of mind. So yeah, I just like putting them there, and I'd recommend it. So this is where my third T-piece is, and from there it just plumbs into the airbox. Now you want it post-filter, you don't want it pre-filter. You know, why not? Why not give it the best air possible? And so yeah, that's actually the intake there into the engine. The panel filter, the original airbox, and the upper side is the low pressure side. It's sucking the air up through the filter so that any contaminants can drop down out of the filter, any large contaminants. So this is where I have my 6mm barb brass fitting. Now what I did here is, this is a 1/4 inch BSP. Now what that means is that when you measure the thread, the outside measurement on the threads is 13mm, the inside is around 12. So I actually drilled a 12mm hole and just tapped it using the fitting. So I mean, it'd be lovely to have 1/4 inch BSP tap, and I intend to get one as soon as possible. I've been meaning to get one, but I haven't. But basically you can just tap that straight into the plastic, just put some pressure on it. Now there's ribs on the inside of this, and they've actually made it go at a slight angle, but that's okay. And I deliberately tried to get in the middle of the ribs because otherwise it could cock you up even more. Strangely and interestingly, I sort of took a measurement, I took a visual from the end of this tab here, from the end straight upwards, is close to the middle of the ribs. But actually, I don't know if you can see in the video, but you can actually see the ribs for some reason. You can actually see the ribs, they're actually kind of showing somehow. So I could actually drill it pretty close to the middle of the ribs, but not quite. It did go off slightly. So I guess that's a heap of information there. I hope that helps. I haven't got the snorkel fitted yet, so yeah, that's happening soon. Alrighty, ciao.